Pledge allegiance to the Lamb, the Son of God, the great I am. He has carried me through this troublesome land, so I pledge allegiance to the Lamb. My life I lived in sin for many a year, but the Lord still knocked, He was so near. He said, son, if you'll reach up, I will take your hand, and I'll lead you through this sinful land. When I reached up, He took my hand. I felt the nail scars in His hand. I saw the blood on Calvary He had shed for the lost like you and me. When the Lord saved me, oh, what a new start. He gave to me a brand new heart. He still carries me through this sinful land, so I pledge allegiance to. Pay their fee, and they would go free. Some men got together and decided they would form a band and robe themselves in a white sheet and go and whip these women out. That was when the White Caps was organized. Y'all know anything about the White Caps? Okay. Joe, have you got they took an oath when they joined the White Caps. I'm going to have my youngest son to read it.
My voice is not very strong, so. White Caps oath. I solemnly swear before God and man that if I reveal anything concerning our organization or anything we may do, the penalty shall be to receive 100 lashes and leave the country within 10 days or be put to death. Now I take this oath freely and voluntarily and am willing to abide by the obligation in every respect. I further agree and swear before God that if I reveal anything concerning our organization, I will suffer my throat to be cut, my heart to be shot out, and my body to be burned. That I will forfeit my life, my property, and all that I have in this world and in the world to come, so help me God. Pretty strong oath.
Later, the White Caps became quite vicious and started whipping some of the better citizens. Bob Catlett was a wealthy man and the leader of the White Caps. Some thought his word was final and was believed to be the brain behind organizing the White Caps. The White Caps killed many innocent people and went unpunished. The Bluebills were later organized to whip out the White Caps. The purpose was to find out what particular night and what person or persons to be attacked. The Bluebill then notified their members who was armed with shotguns to be ready to march against the enemy at the designated time and place. They always had an officer of the law with them, or one deputized by the proper authorities to arrest the White Caps. It was estimated to be from 600 to 1,500 White Caps in Sevier County, but there was never more than 200 Bluebills. Dr. J.A. Henderson was said to be the organizer and leader of the Bluebills. He was a terror to the White Caps for many years. He was a man of many means. But one night, sitting by his hearthstone fire, someone shot through the window and blew the top of his head off. Children going to and from school lived in constant fear. The White Caps took another step. Several raids were made and many women whipped and driven from their homes. They would take hickory whips and whip them until they couldn't stand up. they would pass out and they'd leave them there like that. Several raids were made and men and women whipped and driven from their homes, some with little children. Several bad things happened, but the killing of Laura and Bill Whaley brought things to a head. Bob Catley had a grudge against the Whaleys because of a business dealing that he had had with them. Laura and Bill Whaley had a 6-week-old baby who was born prematurely, and her husband, William, was bedridden. Bob Catley hired Players Wynn and Catley Tipton to kill them for $25 each. He told them to cut their little fingers off of their right hand and bring it when they come for their money. The two was brought to justice and hanged in the courthouse yard in Sevierville. They say there was never such a crowd in a small town. Folks began arriving by buggy and wagon the evening before. The convicted killers was housed in the Knox County Jail, and on Independence Day, 1899, Wynn and Tipton arose early and prepared for a final ride to the Sevier County Courthouse. A 20-mile journey in a 4-seated hack began at 7:15 in the morning. Assisting the hack that brought them was 12 deputized men, including the sheriff of Sevier and Knox County. They made several stops along the way so Wynn and Tipton could say final goodbyes to their friends and relatives. There was no attempts to free them. They arrived at Sevierville at 12:45, and at 1 o'clock they ate a meal prepared for them at the jail. Thousands of people gathered to see the hanging. The next morning, a special breakfast was prepared for the men and served in the jail. The sheriff gave them a razor to shave. The people gathered in small groups, talking in hushed tones. Anticipation began to rise. But the sheriff granted the men their request for a delay so they could have an extra hour with their families. At that time, Little Pigeon River, this might be hard for you to imagine, Little Pigeon River ran within a few dozen yards of the Sevier County Courthouse. You'll have a picture to show it. Wynn requested to be baptized before his death, and the request was granted. They waded in the water in front of the hundreds of people who watched from riverbanks and housetops. At 1 o'clock, the bell in the courthouse tolled. Death warrants were read in the jail, and the walk to the gallows began. The town was eerie quiet in the overcast July humidity. Wynn and Tipton had took their final steps up to the platform. They were asked if they had anything to say. They both indicated their final request had been written beforehand. Tipton had written, "Tell the young men to keep good company. Bad company has brought me to this." Wynn wrote, "Tell the boys to be obedient to their parents." On the gallows, Wynn and Tipton said their farewells to their families and kissed them, and had last words with the clergyman, and they sang a verse of "I need thee every hour. I guess all of you know that goes to church. I need thee, oh, I need thee, every hour I need thee. The minister offered a final prayer for the men's souls. Just before the hood was placed on their heads, officers placed nooses around the men's neck and tightened them up. Publishing reports said that the two seemed resigned to the fate at that moment of death. 4 physicians were present to clarify the time of death. People were thinking, how could it come to this? It was 1:05 in the afternoon. With a clinking sound, the trap door swung open. Wynn and Tipton dropped 6 feet as far as the ropes would allow. And in 13 minutes, Wynn was pronounced dead. Tipton was clarified dead in 18 minutes. Their bodies was cut down and turned over to their families. Both was buried that day. Wynn in Shiloh Memorial Cemetery in Pigeon Forge, and Tipton in Roberts Cemetery on JL Road. April 4th, 1904, the Whitecap area in Sevier County, Tennessee was over. The hanging of these 2 men in the courthouse yard at Sevierville brought the terror of the Whitecaps to an end. But Bob Catley, the man that started all that, was never prosecuted. Anyway, it left my dad at age 2 without a father. The Whitecaps killed my grandpa when my daddy was 2-year-old. I'll have a picture I can follow of that's the house where they lived, on Wallens Creek. It's yesterday's antiques now. My grandpa owned over 100 acres of land there. It went all the way down to the Claybo's place and on. But his brother had went out west, and you know, a long time ago, people went out west and they bought property for nearly nothing. And he had drove back and told my grandpa it would be a good place, since he had all them children and everything, that he should come out there and live. So he had sold all of the property on Wallens Creek except 12 acres. But now he had some more land over on Goose Gap. But he kept that just in case he went out west and he thought, well, I made a mistake, he'd come back. But anyway, when the Whitecaps killed my grandpa, the day that happened, he had gone into Sevierville, and he was gonna give the deed over to the people that had brought the property, and they paid him for it. But before he left Sevierville, the sheriff come up to him and deputized him to go, because they was going to whip a family. The Whitecaps, they'd go to people's house and give them a good whipping over nothing. Sometimes it'd be over nothing, sometimes it would be a good cause. But anyway, he went there and took some friends with him, and they went there to make the Whitecaps not whip these people. But then, anyway, that's when my grandpa got killed. He got killed that night with several other people. And when they picked his body up, there was no money in his pocket. They had got that money out that he had. And my grandma had 7 children. My daddy was the baby. He was 2-year-old. Anyway, that's about all I know about the Whitecaps. But then I was going to talk about that Thomas Houston Davis. Back during that time, he served 2 terms as sheriff in Sevier County, for a sheriff. He was the first and last sheriff that was a Democrat in Sevier County. There never had been one elected before, or there's not been one elected after. But this man's last name was Davis, and he died of TB at age 67. And he's buried at Alder Branch Cemetery in Sevier County. Now, I guess I'll talk about these things. You ready? I wanted to tell about, I grew up in Goose Gap. My mom and dad had 11 children, 6 boys and 5 girls. And we was all healthy and everything. But my dad was a good farmer. We had to go outside and work. I'm an outside person myself. I don't like it in the house. I want to go outside and do things. And that is a picture of my daddy and my mother and 11 children. There's my mom and dad again. And I was going to tell you that I guess all of you all know Aline. Me and her was raised up together and went to the same school. She had a sister named Martha that was my very best friend. But something was different about where they lived. They lived way up high on the hill. Back then, people was lucky to get any water. We had a good spring. Where we lived, it was a spring where water come out. The first wells that was ever dug in Goose Gap was at Bluff Mountain School. That's where I first started school. And the first well that was ever dug in Goose Gap was at that school. Before that, there was 2 things they called a cistern. You know what that is? A place where you can go and let a bucket down and get water, but you have to let the rain go in there in order to get the water in there. But Aline had one of them in her house. And there was one at Mortar Branch School. I don't know whether you know, that was about 2 miles from where I live now. And they had a cistern there to get the water out with. But now I should have brought that picture, but I've got a picture with about almost 40 people's pictures that goes there to that school. 4 of my oldest brothers or sisters' pictures is in that. And I wondered where in the world did all them kids come from? Nobody had cars. They had to walk to that school. But then we got to thinking, my daddy had 11 children. My Uncle George had 11. My Uncle Johnny had 16. And you know what? My grandma had 53 grandchildren. And you know what? There was no divorces in them families. That is me when I was a little tight. I'm a little fat. And this is my first teacher. I was there at Bluff Mountain. She come out to my mom and dad's house. I was not old enough to go to school, but she said if we don't keep more children in school, our school will be cut down to a 1-teacher school. So my mom and dad let me go. And you know what? I'd still take my nap in the day. And I know at school I'd get so drowsy. She'd be up there teaching them other kids. I'd just go up there and crawl in her lap, and I'd go off to sleep. And they had a big long bench, and she would put some of them's coat down and lay me there and let me take my. She was such a good teacher. Her name was Leland King. She lived up here in Pigeon Forge on the left. As you go up right there where you turn to go to Benson School. But she married during that year. She married Hubert Gall. And one day she got sick, and he come out to be our teacher, and we all liked him. And you know what, back then, my Lord, we was lucky to even, we probably didn't even have no coloring crayons. But this is the first store-bought Valentine I ever got. And I got it the first year that I went to school from Leela King Gobble. Now this is a picture of me after I had my two first sons, but right before that picture. And that's my husband. That's tough when he was in the Navy. Now he was raised, until he was 5-year-old, he lived in North Carolina. But then his daddy went to Virginia and went in to work in the coal mines. And he went there and lived until he was 18-year-old, and World War II come out, and he had to go into the Navy. While he was in the Navy, his brother James was in the Army, and he got killed, and they buried him over there. And when the war was over, his family had moved back to North Carolina. And a few years after that, they brought James back and brought him back from overseas. He was killed in Belgium. And they buried him up there at the cemetery where the rest of the family's buried. But Bethel, there in Andrews, they didn't have no jobs for, they just didn't have jobs that paid anything. So he had some people that lived over here in Goose Gap. He come over there to see if he could find a job. He went to work at Alcoa, which was a good place. And him and some of his friends one Sunday, they was going to New Era to church. And I was walking to Goose Gap. When he saw me, he said, who is that girl? And they told him, and he said, wonder where she's going. They said, she's going over to that church. He said, well, let's go over there. And they said, no, we're taking you to New Era. So they took him on. But the next Sunday, he come. He come over to Goose Gap, and me and him met each other. And Aline was there. That's where she went to church too. But me and him wound up getting married. We'd been married 67 years when he passed away. And we had 3 boys, James, Howard, and Joe. And this is a picture. Now, I've got a picture of Joe when they're baptizing, when Bethel's baptizing him, but I couldn't find it. But that is James, and that's Joe, where they're baptizing now. It was at Burnett's Creek where James was, and it was Cold Springs where Harry was baptized. And that's just when the boys were young, they liked animals, and Bethel bought them a kitty. Sometimes it wouldn't go, and they had to crank its tail. And that's just a picture of me and Bethel and the boys. My boys was awful. Their daddy was a preacher. Well, see, they had to go to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, every revival, every singing. But you know what? They just enjoyed it. They liked it. A lot of kids would just fuss and growl because they had to go to church all the time, but they loved it. And they made all kinds of friends, and they've still got them. Friends comes in handy, I guess you know. And that is when Bethel was a pastor at Union Valley, and we went to Southern Baptist. Went to New Orleans. Went to the convention down there. Have you ever heard of the way people are in New Orleans? Well, I'll tell you another thing first. Their graveyards are below the ground. They have to fix a thing because if they put them down in the ground, they float back up. That's the way they was. It was surrounded like that. And there was a man with a red Bible preaching there, preaching on the streets, walking back and forth. But they was people that was doing all kinds of things right in front of everybody. Things that you would go to your dark bed to do. They was doing it right there on the streets. So instead of us getting us a hotel to stay or a room to stay in, we went back across, we had to go back across a big long river when O'Brien got us a room, and then we'd come back of the day for the meetings. Cause I didn't feel safe there. But you know, they was selling them red Bibles and we bought one of them. But a few years after that, we got word that that preacher that was our preacher, he had saw so much of them women and everything that he started going into them. And it ruined his life. So that tells you, if something's going on that's bad, don't hang around it, get away. You know, just go somewhere else. Try, if you can't change him, don't let him change you. Now this is when me and Bethel had been married 50 years. I always wanted to go to Hawaii, but I thought I never could. I thought, Lord, I never said nothing about it. And at the time we was married 50 years, he said, we're going to Hawaii. So we went, and we visited 4 of the largest islands, and we really had a good time. The thing I liked the most was King Kamehameha's palace. It's where the last king, see, they used to have a king there, but that's where the last king had lived. And we got to go upstairs, but we was not allowed to hold on. We couldn't handle anything, you know, they wanted to keep, and they had their, whatever it is they put on their crowns, you know, they had them there, but they would not let you touch them. But we really had a good time there. And then when we got back home, our boys give us a reception there at Mountain View Baptist Church. That has always been our church. You know, when me and Bethel was first married, Bethel hadn't been saved. He had had a rough childhood. His daddy drunk. He told me that he had gone to bed hungry many a night. I said, well, what about your daddy? He said, his liver come first. You know what? My dad would not allow nobody coming around us drinking or using bad language. He had a brother that we really loved, and he would drink, but my dad wouldn't allow him to come there. But you know, his brother got saved before he died. And that was so good. He told my daddy, he said, I've been saved quite a while. You know, if you get hooked on that liquor, you can't hardly do without it. And he told my daddy, he said, I've been saved the right smart bit, but I wouldn't tell nobody. I was afraid that I couldn't kick that liquor thing. But he had. But anyway, now this is my son Joe with little Sherry. And that's James and Paulette. They're both here today. I could have no better daughter-in-laws. Nobody in this world has got any better. Both of their mothers has passed away, but they are really good daughter-in-laws. And these are my grandchildren. The middle one she got cancer and died. She was like my child. And this one over here is my grandson, Justin. He went to Yale, and he is now an Episcopalian priest at New Haven, Connecticut. And this little girl over here, that's little Olivia. She is a large animal vet in South Dakota, where it's cold.
Colder than here?
I've got a picture of her giving a bison. She's doctoring a bison, or a elk. Buffalo. Okay. Anyway, her job is to give those animals a physical before they are slaughtered, and their meat is shipped all over the world. They have to have a physical to know that there's nothing wrong with that meat that they're fixing to eat. And now these two down here, This one is, they're two of my great-grandchildren. Devin was in the Navy. He's now got a medical discharge. I worry about him. And this is his brother, Andrew. He has graduated from college and he's working at Oak Ridge as a computer programmer. And this is Devin's little, now Devin's married a lady and this was her, she's been married before and had a little Alex. She is as quiet as a little mouse. And this is his little boy, Devin's little boy. He's now 5-year-old. I've only saw him 3 times. I wanted, see, they don't live close to me. I wanted to get him and spoil him, but see, I didn't get a chance. Now this is my middle son. He's not here today, and his wife's name is Howard, and that is Carol. He lives in Rockford, and he belongs to Rockford Baptist Church. Now Joe lives at Seymour, and he belongs to Seymour First Baptist. When James was barely able to start courting, that's him sitting right over there, Bethel got to be their pastor. And little Paulette was trying to learn to play the piano. And you know, when we left over there, we had to leave James, because him and Paulette had fell in love. And you know, he's been there ever since. She's still the pianist, and James is the song leader. And everything they're working in the church all the time. I don't think they could do any better. And now this is when he was at my house the other day. We was talking about the records, you know, that you write things in the Bible about people being born, when they die, and all that stuff. Well, I had that one Bible, and then I got a chance to buy 2 more Bibles till I'd have one for all of my children. So I tried to put all the deaths and all that stuff in the books till the boys will have one when I'm gone. And there's I told you I had 6 brothers. That's the only one that's living. And he's at Lifeway in Louisville. He's been there 4 months. My sister Nellie died. She was 65. She died. In 3 months, my baby brother died. And then his wife had been dead a long time. And he had a girlfriend, and she died. Then he had a double stroke. He could not see for a long, he couldn't see or speak or anything. He almost died. But anyway, they got him to the hospital, and finally they took him to Lifeway. He's has to wear braces on his hands. He can't stand up. But now he's got a good boy, and his wife, they take real good care of him and visit him every day. Have I just got 5 minutes to go? I need to sing a song, and where is it? You're not going to have it, Joe.
I can get a copy of it. Yeah, just a
I'll
second.
get it.
Okay.
Take me a minute.
Is Lou not here?
Now, my brother, Lynn Allen, was the one that wrote this song. He was a deacon at Mountain View Baptist Church. But he to the Lamb